everyone, it's Jean from the Inky Owl Studio. Thank you for stopping by and for supporting my channel. Welcome to all of my new viewers and ones who have been following me along for a while. I so appreciate your support and your comments, and just thank you so much for all of that. Today I am going to be working on a storage pouch for the journal that goes along with the Birds of a Feather Quartet Folio that I've been working on. And I pre-recorded them and edited it through. This is not necessarily a beginner's project, but it's much like the one that we just got done in the last video. So if you made one of those little envelope to a boxes project, then you'll be familiar with what I'm going to be doing with this one. So today we will go through the box pouch portion, and then later in the week I'm going to show you how I made the little flap that goes over it. And I'm going to make a project that's much like the one I just did in the envelope to a box video, but I'm going to be using two 8.5 by 11 sheets of cardstock that I printed on it. Actually, I'm going to be using four. These are the outside. This is the outside print, and I printed two that are going to be for the inside, because I want it to be, you know, firm and stable, because this will be storing it, you know, maybe over a period of time. You could do this without doubling it up for sure, if you just wanted a simple box. And I did a prototype here that I haven't glued together, but yeah, this would work as well. It just depends on what you're going to be doing with it. Like if you're going to be giving a gift of something, this probably would be just fine. But I'm just going to make it a little bit more stable, I do believe. So the first thing I want to do is I want to glue my two sheets of cardstock together first. And this doesn't really have that much of a directional, you know, you might want to call this sort of a directional for this piece, but some do. Some have an absolute pattern that has to be a certain way. So this would be the top, because of this printing down here. I'm going to call this the top. So the other side needs to be opposite. So we have the printing down here and the top here. So that is going to be opposite of one another, because it's going to fold around. And that way you can kind of avoid the pattern being upside down on the flat portion of it. It's a small thing, and really probably with this printout it wouldn't matter, but it might matter in one that you're using. So to glue these together, now for this to work out, I found the measurements have to be pretty precise. So there is measuring involved, but it's not really difficult. I am going to connect these two together, I would say about like a 1/2 inch overlap. So I'm going to draw a line, a 1/2 inch line here with my ruler right down the side like that. And this way, when I glue the other piece over there, I can keep it pretty straight and avoid, you know, rejoin it a little bit. So let me re-look at my directions here again. Oops, this way. Yep, there we go. And I'm going to use glitter glue for this, secure it very well. So we'll just match up our stripes here and match up that line so that we're pretty well straight. All right. Now I'm going to do the same with the other piece, and I won't do that on camera. I'll come back. All right, I have sewn down the middle of my seam, as well as glued them together, and glue the separate pieces together. And now we're going to kind of glue these two pieces together. I'm going to glue the bottom, or the inside lining, to the top. And I'm going to just, I'm not gluing for a permanent, well, sort of semi-permanent. The purpose of the gluing, it's just to tack it down together, because I am going to sew around it eventually. If you're not going to sew, then of course you want to be a little bit more careful to get it glued down properly. With your glue, with either your Fabri-Tac or your glitter glue or a white glue you find very dependable. But I just basically want to keep it from shifting on me too much. And we'll just put these two together. So I'm using a glue stick to do that with. Alrighty, and so I am going to cut the lining to better match the top part there. And I'm using my outside pattern to decide how I'm going to cut that off. And sometimes that border, you know, if I get another printer, I'm going to look for one that is borderless, because sometimes, depending on how your paper or your cardstock feeds in, it is sometimes an uneven border. So it's hard to get them to sometimes exactly match one paper from another. It is sort of frustrating. But that's all right. Okay. So we've done this much, and my notebook right here. Now we're going to have to, this seam, it would be really cool to have it on the very bottom, and that's what I did with this one. The problem is it didn't leave a whole lot for the flap. It's just barely comes over it. So what I'm doing now is, let's see, determining which one is the top here. Let me see. I believe I'm going to have this here. I think this is going to be my top. I am going to measure from here, from the very, and I got to stop saying those words, here and there, because it doesn't help you, does it? Really, it doesn't. I'm going to measure from the left side, or this is the side that's going to fold up. It's the non-flap side. I'm going to measure from there, and I'm thinking I'll leave about a 1/2 inch right about there, and I am going to then mark it, you know, about 1/4 of an, oh, not quite a 1/2 inch from the bottom of the journal there, that this here is going to be my length, or the height. This is going to be the height of my journal cover. And then once I've marked that, then I'm going to be a little bit more precise and kind of get a measurement on that. And that measurement is going to be 6 1/4 inches. So I'll want to mark 6 1/4 inches over here on this side, right there. So I got those two sides marked. And now I need to put a score line right down that area. Now I'm working with 2 sheets of cardstock, so I might have to revert to my scoreboard, but at least I can put a preliminary score in there for you on camera. And then the width of it, I do believe that 3/4 of an inch is plenty for the width. Even if you start filling up the journal, it should be plenty room in there. Yep. All right. So now that is going to be our bottom of our journal. Now over here on the edge, we have to course, get our flaps going for the size. And we have to maintain our 3/4 of an inch all the way around. So I'm going to mark 3/4 of an inch right here, and just put it in places so that I can lay my ruler down. And let me do this side. Now I'm going to do the other side off of camera, just so that you don't have to watch me do all this. Just quickly put a mark in there and come right down here. Yep. So let me do the other side off camera, and I'll be right back. All right, I've scored and I have folded along the score lines. And I will say working with two pieces of cardstock is a little challenging. If your printer takes a heavier cardstock, that would be wonderful because you wouldn't have to do this. My printer won't take anything over 65 pounds, so one wasn't enough and two is probably more than plenty, but anyways, so I got that much done, and now I'm going to see how we're taking shape here. So this will pretty much be the front of the pouch area. So I kind of want to put a divot in here so that it's easy to take that out, in and out. And I'll probably measure, let's see, from where this will sit at the bottom. I want it to peek out a little bit, so I'm going to put a little line there. And let's measure that. That is not quite an inch. Let's go past that. Let's measure down 1.25 inches down to there. So 1.25 inches down from the top. That way this can peek out a little bit. All right, that's about how far down I want to go. I'm going to take a round plate, lay it up against that line. Now I need to make sure that I am in the middle of these two fold lines right here. So I eye it up in the beginning just to get an idea, and then I take out my ruler and try to make sure that, okay, this is 1.8 inches, and let's see, what's this over here? Okay, about 1.8 inches on both places. So I'm going to mark that, just so that I make sure I get it in the middle. So now I'm going to bring my plate down so it's in between those two markings there. There we are, and it's reaching down in that area. And then I'm going to draw a line. All right, so I will be cutting that off. And before I do that, though, I think we'll go ahead and work on the sides. So like in the envelope video that I just did, here are the score lines that come in there. So there's the two score lines. I wonder if you can see it better. I see it better over here. Here's the two score lines, and where they meet down there, or where they go from here to the main score line. I don't know what to describe these at. So I'm going to cut at an angle just to that point, to that score line there, and cut at an angle to that just like that. And then I'm going to come over here and cut a triangle out. This way. So I've cut on either side of each of these score lines that make up the bottom, and then the side score line, that's where I stopped. And we'll do that the same over here. And I'm just making a little angle there. Oops, and then one over here. So it's a small angle. It's very, very small. There we are. All right, and so these will be glued down to the inside, like so. So this is our bottom of our box. And so I will now cut along here and ink around it. And then I'm going to sew. Not yet. I have to make the cover. I have to make the flap. So to make the flap, we have to do some more scoring along these two lines here. So this is 6 1/4 from the top to the first score line on the bottom. I'm going to take the other opposite score line on the bottom, and I'm going to measure 6 1/4 again. Turn it around, right? Okay, 6 1/4 a second time to here. And this will be our next score line right along this area, right in between all those lines there. So this will be a score area, the first one. And we will then measure another 3/4 of an inch beyond our 6 1/4 to 7 inches. Oops, get our 7 inches here from, so we're going to add another 3/4 of 1/4 to our original 6 1/4 measurement. We're going to add 3/4 of an inch, which brings us to 7 inches. Score line right along there. So that will be the top. And now with all those already done, we can now work out the flap. So I'm going to cut right straight. I'm not going to angle. I'm going to go straight along that score line and straight down the score line that goes up to the top. Okay. So this is the flap here. And let me get that rounded off there nicely. Well, I didn't end up with much bigger flap than I did before. Well, then I'm going to round out these corners. And I will sew inside the score lines, inside the score line here, come down around inside the score line. I probably will have to stop there. I probably shouldn't have glued these down before I started sewing. We'll see. I think my needle can take that. And then sew around here and down there. So that's how I'm going to sew inside the score lines. Well, I have played around with this and I have decided that I'm not going to sew. Changed my mind. It doesn't really need sewing. I just went in and put glue along the edge where I had not put it before, and just, we made it glued down and everything, and it's fine. It doesn't really need it. And while I was working with this, there's a couple of things I wanted to bring out that I would do differently next time when I would do this cutting down here. And why I couldn't have thought that while I was cutting, well, you know what? Sometimes the brain doesn't work that way. Down when we cut along the, to make the two flanges here, I know that we angled them in on each side. I would not angle one of them. One of them I would cut straight. I would choose either the bottom that comes up, or either the front side or the back side, and I would make them both the same. So if I were to choose this side, I would have cut this straight and this one straight, just right along with the score line. Then I would have angled these two here. The reason being that when you go to put your flaps together, you would not have this little hole inside here. All right, so if I had cut this at less of a angle, it would have been straight across here, right? And it wouldn't have developed this little hole. That's what I would have done differently. When I cut these top score lines, I would cut them a little differently than I did previously. I would start, there's two score lines here, and I didn't ink this one, so let me ink it real fast so you can see it. These two top score lines, I would start cutting, because before I cut this tab went all the way up to the very top. So this whole section went all the way up to the top. I would start here at this fold line and cut all the way straight, all the way up until I came to the end. I would just cut right here. Then I would come back in and cut straight along this score line. So when you are finished, you have this flap. Now when you put your two sides together, then that flap can be glued right down inside like this to really give this little box a lot of stability. That's what I would do. So I've glued up one side, and I'm going to glue up the other side right along here. And this part will be finished. And actually, so you just want to make sure you're squared off here. I kind of set it down on a flat surface, just to make sure that it's squared off down there on the bottom. Yeah, and actually it ended up being, I think, strong enough. Well, it is strong enough without doing the flap overs up here like I showed you. And that's probably because I have doubled up on the cardstock. But the next one I make, I'm definitely going to do it the way I just showed you. So now we're all set here on the sides. We have a nice little box here to keep the file journal in. Well, Well, that'll wrap it up for this session. Thanks a lot for following along and viewing, and we will see you later this week. You have a great crafty day. Bye.